Here's the wave. It's called the experience ecology. Not the experience economy, the experience ecology, because it's about experience which we're having collectively. Because what's happening in the world today is that we're willing to pay more for experiences, because those experiences become our memories, and memories are more precious because time is moving so fast. So for example, hands up people here in the room who went on holiday sometime in the last 2 years. So yeah, last 2 years? Yeah, okay. And hands up who used some kind of online service to be able to book their holiday. Isn't that amazing? Couldn't even do that 10 years ago. What's just happened? All the travel agents are now out of business because you had to go through a travel agent before. They were the middlemen. So middlemen are disappearing. So what are the travel agents doing now? I know a lot of travel agents that become tour operators on these high-level experiences where they're actually creating packages, amazing things that they're loving much more because they're actually out there sharing those experiences as well. Because people are willing to pay for that in a way they're not willing to pay for just the connections to book their flight. So there's a upwards in the hierarchy chain, and we're all becoming part of it. Here is a great example on YouTube. Everything's going live. So the idea of the old days is kind of recording things and then sending them out, like webinars that are recorded. Those days have come and gone. Now people want to see live things, which is why I will show up here, because I want to be able to meet with people. It's why I'll have live webinars, because I want people to have that live experience. This one, more than 8 million people watched Baumgartner jump from the edge of space. 8 million all at the same time online. YouTube is designing itself to all be live experiences. So we're seeing this happen more and more. People are willing to pay for that. We're seeing also collaborative consumption, which is what I said earlier about the power of the crowd, is now going in the opposite direction, which is not just consuming, it's producing, which is collaborative creativity. X Prize, perfect example of collaborative creativity. So what could you do in your business to bring a community together where they're going to play a game of some sort? Whether it's something like the Trust Conference where they're all showing up, whether it's something like a competition that they can be part of. We started something at Green School, which just started a couple of weeks ago, modeled on this, the Google Science Fair, where kids can all get involved to share their experiences and the things they're doing to be able to study at school. So it actually makes science fun. We decided to do something similar, which we just launched, which is a competition. Greatest Student on Earth scholarship competition. After winning the greenest school on Earth, we said, why don't we actually give anyone an opportunity to join this and win a scholarship for a year to come for the Green School for free. So if any of you got kids from 3 years old up to 18 years old, you can come for free if they just put in a 3-minute video of something they're doing which is green, something they're doing which is making a difference in their community, and then we then share those stories with others around the world. Right? So we set that up. It's on the greenschool.org website, and it's basically creating a buzz where people are getting involved, even people who aren't our customers yet. Like always, there are already sites up which make it very easy to get started on this. OfferPop is one of them. You can just go there and set up your competition or things you want to do. Wildfire is another one. You can see Sony, Virgin, all these people use these tools right now to bring their community together to play the game. This is WooBox, which is one for competitions on Facebook. We ran one of these for all of our short story competitions for Talent Dynamics. And I'll show you just how powerful this can be. In the same way that Peter Diamandis says with X Prize, they put $10 million, they raised $10 million for it, but it created $1 billion industry. It's one of the best ways to leverage right now is that you bring a community together. Here's a little video which comes from Freelancer. So while this time around, I'm not speaking so much about Elance and Freelancer and all of those different outsource companies which are doing incredible work. I mean, we outsource all the things that we do right now. But because of what Freelancer did, which was to set up a competition, which they said we'll put $25,000 up in prize money, but they got millions of dollars worth of advertising by getting people out there in all different countries to just expose their logo. So they have something called Expose Our Logo competition, where the winner will get $25,000. You post it on YouTube as to where you put the logo, people putting it in all sorts of crazy places, but you just get an idea of how, when you decide you want to motivate a group of people towards something fun, but also something that's going to grow your marketing, it's incredible what you can achieve. So here is the Expose Your Logo video for this year, which is at this point still an ongoing campaign.
Are you ready? You ready to win $25,000? Well, listen up, because the freelancer.com Expose Our Logo contest is back. Yo, So if I had a little more time, I could work on my $1 million idea, make $1 million online. And if I had a little more cash, I could get my team together, make a product, get to market real fast. And if I had a little bit of help, I could bootstrap, take a new path, make a little bit of wealth. And if I had a little bigger crew, I could take on bigger deals. Ain't no telling the kind of stuff I could do. I could migrate my projects off of .NET, start fresh with the process, model objects. I could rewrite the sales pitch, strategize plans, market research online, analyze brands. I could lower my costs but increase my sales. Hire talent worldwide with the specialized skills. I could put the puzzle pieces together to make a move. With freelancer.com, no limit what I can do. Yo, I can get the job done, put me in the game. I bet that you get it, you better believe I'm staking my claim. While you sleeping, I'm working my code so clean. I could be the MVP of your virtual team with the 6-figure skills and the 3-figure price tag. Cutting edge tech from the web to the iPad, iPhone, mobilized team. I can localize apps using tokenized strings. I can write Flex in AS3 to integrate with backend database services using PHP. And I can do it at a fraction of cost with no loss in quality. So call on me, satisfaction's guaranteed that. Expose the freelancer.com logo somewhere crazy. Shoot a video and upload for your chance to win.
My question to you is, what could you do with your community, with the people that you want to be working with the people that might be your customers right now today, with the partners you might want to work with, which could get them involved in something? And maybe it's an event of some sort, maybe it's a competition of some sort, but something where you're actually getting them having an experience. Because without those experiences, why people will come back to you and do something without having to be asked. And it's why they'll be willing to even pay you more than the competition if they feel they're getting that heart connection with you as well. What could you do for your customers? What would you do to make a difference? So this is where it gets kind of interesting. This is where we start to see that things will all link together, because the biggest one thing which is to do with our psychology, which has won more Nobel Prizes than any other part of our concept of neuroscience or physiology or psychology, is the concept of game dynamics. So anyone seen A Beautiful Mind? Right, so Robert Nash, A Beautiful Mind, all game dynamics, he won a Nobel Peace Prize for that. So there's many that have been, because this is cutting edge, how does our conscious brain work? A lot of us are stuck with our unconscious. Oh, I don't want anyone messing with my unconscious mind, I can't control that part. Our conscious mind is the dangerous part, because that's the part where the moment we see a game, we go, oh, here's the rules for that game, I better play it. That's how countries get young men to go to war and kill people. It's like, those are the rules of the game, go. It's the next thing, you're killing someone, right? So game dynamics is what makes us stay on Facebook for so long. Game dynamics is what ends up making us feel bad if we're in a group in a networking session and someone's more popular than someone else. And it's a totally different game from when we're sitting down trying to do a crossword puzzle. And this crossword puzzle is the same kind of game as when we're trying to work out things like our finances. It's a different part of our being that's being tested at that point and becoming alive. So there is a logo which is well known around the world because it's part of the biggest game that gets played around the world. The biggest event, which is to do with games. Anyone know what's the biggest event in the world to do with all sorts of games? Olympics, right? And what is the logo for the Olympics? 5 circles, interlocking. Many people don't know that was designed by Carl Jung. Carl Jung designed that after he had been involved in the first publication of the I Ching from the West, which is all about the 5 elements we've been talking about. And it was someone called Pierre de Coubertin, who was from France, who decided that he wanted to re-energize the world through bringing back the modern Olympics, because it hadn't been around for 2,000 years, since the ancient Greeks. He says this is the way for us to be able to unite the world in peace, which is why it's got a dove in it, and why it's got the olive branch. But he said, but I want to have a better logo than that. And Carl Jung said, well, there are these 5 elements which you bring them together, and it represents all of humanity. And what Pierre de Coubertin did was, realizing just how powerful these was, he actually created something called the pentathlon, which doesn't even exist anymore because it was too difficult for any one person to do. But at the beginning he thought, well, this is all things. You know, that was before we kind of all know that we're all best at doing one thing well instead of all things well. And so, but he had it as 5. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of a trivia question. I'm going to give you like 1 minute to figure out with a group of people, maybe 3 or 4 people, so you can kind of get into a group and see if you can figure out what you agree as being the 5 sports that were part of the modern pentathlon. It started from the very first Olympics, which was early 1900s or late 1800s, all the way through to the 1960s or 70s when it was cancelled because it was just too difficult. What do you think those 5 sports were that an athlete had to master? Turn to a group, 3-4 people, and come up with 5. What do you reckon? Let's see what we came up with. Any volunteer answers? Volunteer answers? What do you think? Anybody? Running was one. What do you think? Sprinting or marathon running? Okay, longer running, right? So someone's thinking longer running. Okay. What else? Javelin. Someone had an idea of javelin. There's very few stadium sports in this one, actually. Swimming. Swimming is one of them. Yes. Shooting. Cycling. Archery. Something. Well, the shooting was horse riding. Show jumping. There's some pretty complex things here. What's going on here? Okay, let me share with you the 5 and the reason that these were the 5. So, and I'm using our spiral for this. The first one, which is wood energy, spring energy. In fact, if you go to the Chinese Olympics, you'll see that the 5 mascots they had were the 5 elements, right? So they understood this. They brought it back at the Chinese Olympics. The British, they had no clue. So this one, first of all, which is the wood one, was something called show jumping. Show jumping? You got to jump with the horse and the thing. You got to jump it around. Now, show jumping. By the way, show jumping. Do you think that the athlete had to do an awful lot of exertion when they're on the horse? Not compared to running or something, right? So why is that even a sport? But what they're doing is they're looking to control something which is bigger than themselves. All right. So this idea of spring energy, wood energy, spring energy. The idea of this was a word called power. You know, true power is not can you be the horse. True power is can you be the jockey. And so for a lot of us who are at this level, it's like, yeah, I want to harness something bigger. I want to start a business. I want to start a move. I want to start something big that I'm going to harness. Right? The only problem is a lot of times we do end up not being the jockey, but actually being the horse, right? The one running around. Right? So this is the first one here, which is show jumping. Then there's the second one. The second one, which is all about the fire energy. Show jumping. The second one, which is about fire energy, this one here, this is now going to fire, which is summer. And this one was all about a word called flare. Flare is a very different skill set. It's something that shows up when you're dancing. Flare is what shows up when we're with others. Flare, in the case of the Olympics, was fencing. Fencing. Fencing is such an interesting thing because it's like a gentleman's sport. But the idea of fencing is it has everything to do with what the other person's doing. So you can think about game dynamics where this is taking place. And I'm going to go through the game dynamics so you can realize that the way that all of us behave can be managed and designed. Governments can understand this. They do this already, but large companies do this too. But they can be designed for positive use as well as for negative use, right? I mean, you can actually make people do very destructive things they didn't even realize until after they've done it, but at the same time buy things that they didn't even realize they shouldn't have bought until they bought it. And we've all had those experiences. It's like, well, what happened there? It seemed so logical at the time, and then suddenly I just went down the wrong path. Well, we can use that same direction to go down the right path and to lead us all to better behaviors. So this one here then leads to this one, which is a different type of energy. This one here, earth energy, which is now autumn. This is about a different kind of game, which is perseverance. This is a type of game. The perseverance game, this one was actually steeplechase or cross-country running, which means it isn't just about running, it's about jumping over things and going into puddles and going over fences. Cross-country running, which is about in all different circumstances, can you keep going? And this is something with those who are tempo energy, they're just constantly, they'll be busy all day. A lot of tempo, like people who are traders, they're not even like, stock market traders. They work in emergency wards. A lot of the best nurses and the best caregivers are like, they're just out there making sure every day everyone's taken care of, everything's fine, right? And then that's their completion of the day. They didn't need to have some 5-year plan. So that's where they get their value from. And then we have this one here, which is the opposite of all of these ones so far. I think this is the only one where you're actually exerting yourself, really. These are two, you're actually harnessing power or you're with others. This one here, you're not exerting yourself at all. This is winter energy. Winter energy, which is now metal. This one is about precision. This one was shooting. Shooting, you do not move. In fact, you have to be completely still. Shooting, you can't be thinking. You have to be totally clear. So shooting is what happens at this level here too. It's very interesting because you actually take each of these and you can see that each of these actually fits a different part of our being. You can actually take this first one, which is about will. This first one, which is about our ability to drive things or make things happening, which is here, the will to do, the will to live. And these people have to have that fired up, that will. But this will then turns to this thing here, which is heart. Because this actually turns on and gives us an experience of heart, right? This one gives an experience of body. And it doesn't matter what you do in terms of grounding yourself, whether it's meditation or whether it's yoga or something which is like out there just zoning in through cross-country running, you're going to find yourself actually getting that sensation, like getting lost in your art. And then you'll find this one here is about mind. And this is the key of actually realizing that all of this leads us towards a cycle where we're experiencing different parts of ourselves. This one up here, the metal, or this one up here is water. Water energy, which is spirit. This one here is about something called rhythm. Because rhythm shows up in swimming. Swimming here is all about rhythm, and this is the key to spirit. And so this one here is the spirit one. And this is why I say you need to be the drummer, because when you're the drummer higher up the levels, you're the one that's creating the rhythm, that's creating that spirit. So you know how we organize ourselves in rhythm allows us to tap into that. So I'm going to give you an example of how you can actually do this as almost like the first step for anyone is that how do you create that rhythm so you actually get into this cycle where you do live a full life, where all aspects are showing up as well. And what I'll do is I'll just share this again here, because you can see that we're getting on the spiral staircase, that there is an order to this as well. And I can actually look at this from the point of view of vision. In fact, let me just give you one here too, that if I gave a square here, and let's just talk about the different types of vision that show up as we're showing up in each of these areas. You're going to find that you know, we can design, for example, and I do this when I'm working with people at yellow-green level, we design will games. I mean, these games are games of life and death. They're kind of like sports games. There is competition involved where it's like, okay, let's go for this, where you can like having people like in the competitions we showed up here, but they're in a game where no one dies, right? They're in a game where everyone actually gets to serve and support. Heart games are like different games. They're like acknowledgement. It's about, you know, the Emmy Awards or the Trust Awards is a perfect example of a hard game where people want to play it because they want to be acknowledged by others. You know, the perseverance game, a different type of game. When I'm working with someone like John Halpin, it's all puzzle games. It's all about precision. It's a different type of person that's showing up here and a different way to get into this. And there's different people who will be turned on by different games based on their profile. Right? So by understanding that, it allows you to actually engage people by knowing what's the game they want to play and to have fun and have the experience. But all of this leads to your team, because this is about cycles, and your team also goes through cycles. In fact, there are normally 4 steps within a cycle. 4 steps in a cycle, which is quite well known, is number 1 is form, which is all about the beginning, the wood side. Then the second one is, wrong. First one is, no, that's right. I'm getting very confused. Form, and then storm. Storm is when you're now together, and it's all like all happening. And then from storm, you then get to this one here, which is perform. Sorry, no, it's not. It's norm. I got very confused. Norm and then perform. So these are the 4 stages of a team building. And most of us, we don't realize there's different leaders that are good at norming. You're going to keep on finding that creators and others are not the best at actually getting you to perform. But you get the right people leading you, and you'll get you to this level. Most important is most people forget this 5th one, which is transform, which is what happens in the spirit. And as you saw in Kathleen's video, I love that thing she said, which is in form, you are measuring your change. You are measuring your change, whereas here, you are changing your measure, which means that you're now changing what you're measuring. It's no longer the same things you were measuring before. It's not how hard you're working or what results you're getting. It's about how others are now performing, what they're measuring, and each one of the levels has something different they're measuring when you go further up. But this is different. This is also about vision, because on vision, you're going to see that at every one of these stages, there's a different vision that shows up. That you have one on this level here, on the form side, up here, which is something called perspective. It's one of the 5 levels of vision. At Vision Villas, we talk about these. Perspective is when you can see in the distance. These guys are great at putting plans together. They know how to put a plan together, right? But they're terrible at the things happening on the side. It's like one of my first mentors. He was a great creator, But you know how a lot of creators and people are absent-minded, they kind of wear odd socks and things. He came down for breakfast one day when I was staying with him and his family was there, and his wife looks at him and goes, "Oh, Michael, you're wearing odd shoes again." He had one black and one brown. He's like, "Oh, not again." He had no idea any of this stuff because he's like so head in the clouds, right? But this is perspective, which if you think about like a garden hose, is like a jet, which can go real long way. So these people can reach real far. But the opposite down here is something called perception. Perception is not depth of vision, it's breadth of vision. So perception, I've totally spelled that wrong. What am I doing there? Oh, no, perception is when you've actually got the ability to see peripheral vision. You can see all the things happening around you. You can't put a big plan together, but you can actually get a sense of everything, which is why these guys are so good at the markets, for example, or so good at negotiating. But this is the opposite of this one, and you can't have both at the same time. Each of these also has a particular way that they have a need that gets fulfilled, which is that foundation. So I'm layering and layering and layering here so we can see this. Perception, perspective and perception, when you take the foundations, you're going to find that Anthony Robbins talks about this. You know, Maslow's laws, the 6 human needs, but where he says you've got to have all of them, I don't say you have to have all of them. There's one which is your strongest one. And you're going to find that what he calls significance, which is like what I call freedom, if you have someone at the top level here, you might say it's about the money, but it's not about the money. The top person here, freedom, if you take away this person's freedom, they'll leave you no matter what. That's what happened with me with 3i. At the end, I left that company because even though they wanted to give me more money, they wanted to tie me up in so much red tape. I said, I don't want to be here anymore. And I left there with millions on the table. And I didn't even understand when I left why that had happened. I thought, wow, if someone had offered me millions a couple of years ago, I would have just said, yeah, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. So I could actually have the resources to run my business. And now I was just walking away from it. But it's because they were trying to take away my freedom. I realized that that's much more valuable to me than any money, right? And that's why I do the things I do. But the opposite of freedom or significance is connection down here. And if you take away the connection of a trader or a deal maker or an accumulator, the connection they can have with others, because you're moving too fast. When you have your trader come up to you in the team and says, look, we've got to slow down a little bit because like there's customers that are not getting the service they'd want. And if you go, don't worry, we'll worry about that later. We've got more business to bring in. They'll leave the company before you've sorted it out. And you just lost one of your biggest assets. So understanding this is like, wow, it's not about the money. It's about other motivations which people need to have in order to even start growing their mountain for their river to flow in the first place. But there's also opposites here. So we talked about value and leverage. So there are also 2 visions, this one on this side, which is clarity, black and white. You know, you take a photo, if you take a photo and you go to the photographer and say, I want the clearest photo I can get, they'll say, make it black and white. Because then everything comes down to the bits, right? It's like black or white, it makes all clear. There's clarity here, which is the opposite of clarity, opposite of black and white, is color. Blaze love color. These people will bring color to a team, while these people bring clarity to a team. You need all these types of vision, by the way. And by the way, the opposite of these 2, on this side, is called certainty. Certainty is one of the human needs. And the opposite of certainty is variety. So if you take away a law's certainty about where things might go, to say, here's clarity, then they're like, this is too risky for me, I'm out of here. Right? Whereas this person's like, this is kind of boring. Like, if we don't kind of have some fun or do something here. Now, does this mean that if you've got someone complaining about things being boring in your company, and they're on this side, you should be putting them to head up the party crowd? Totally. Give them a chance to go out there and say, let's have some fun then. You work it out. And they'll figure out something that you couldn't even think about. And then they'll actually get you all having fun. And then suddenly you actually grow your vision as a team as well. Right? And this is not about either or. It's not like you can coexist, but you just got to know how you're doing it. What you don't want is to actually go from one extreme to another. You know, it's like, you know, you're young and, you know, it's like you're in relationships and it's like lots of variety. So you're doing that. It's all fantastic. And then after a while, it's like, you know what? It always happens. It's like, you know, you're missing the other one. So then what happens? I want to go get some certainty. I'll get married. Now I've got certainty. Okay, I've had enough certainty. Let's go out and have some more variety. No, don't do that. Don't do that. No. So everything gets structured in a certain way. But then, of course, there's the 5th one. Remember, this is a pyramid you're looking down on. This is a spiral. So you've got to go up to the 5th one here, transform. So this one here is about promises we make. We all have a promise that we're making which shows up in our surfboard. This one is the promise to grow. They cannot help but grow. These guys glow, cannot help but glow. They're always glowing, can't help it. If you take that off, take off variety, they go die, they'll go somewhere else. Slow, cannot help but slow things down. And so if you try and speed them up, then you take them out of our comfort zone. And no, it's all about the knowledge which only shows up as a result of that. In fact, you'll find at every level here, the people who are at the highest level, they have turned this into their purpose. Richard Branson, talk about intergalactic flight, right? Virgin Galactic. You take the likes of Bill Gates looking for amazing cures for things where it's all about innovation. But that's very different from Glow. You take the likes of someone like Oprah Winfrey, who's all about kind of sharing the message. Or Slow, which is all about equity. You take anyone, George Soros, any of them, they're all running programs right now about creating equity or equality between people. And then everyone on this side, building the world's knowledge, Carnegie, Larry Page, are all about let's build libraries, let's actually collect knowledge and give it for free to everybody, because that's their biggest thing here. But of course, all of these are all still just an eddy current. They won't take us as a civilization anywhere until we get to the fifth one, which is transform. And that's no longer about sight. It's no longer about, we have in our resort in Vision Villas a statue which is in a Sufi pose, which means that if you see them kind of bend over, it's the monk with their hands over their eyes, their mouth, their ears. They cut off all their senses, because it's only when you go beyond sight that you get to insight. So the fifth level of vision is insight. When Helen Keller is talking, she's talking from insight, not from sight. And insight is up here, different level now. All of the rest is sight, but this insight, which is basically allowing you to shift up a gear. Today is about insight. It's about stepping out of your life and getting to the fifth part. And this one here is what actually allows us to be able to learn, to be able to effectively shift to a high level. And that one there is not about grow, glow, slow, or no. This one here is about flow. Flow exists at this level. How do you become a great leader? By understanding who you are when you're in your doing, but then not going out trying to just be your energy in front of everyone, but fine-tuning yourself to each of the other different energies as well. And what I'll be sharing with you in a moment is how at Vision Villas, in fact, everywhere we go, you can design your day and design your spaces from the moment you leave here today in such a way that you're always in your flow. There's a way to do it, and it's a simple, easy way, and I'll be sharing with you how I do it so you can see for yourself how you can work through as well. Would you like to hear that? Yeah, okay, so I'm going to do that, but not before I blow your socks off with the next wave. Good.